Spy is without a doubt the weakest class in TF2, but he doesn't have to be. I've improved many of Spy's worst weapons and set them up on my public TF2 server for you to play with. In my last video, I changed 30 of TF2's most broken weapons, so this will be building upon those already existing changes, which many of you utterly despised. I'll be addressing that at the end of this video, don't worry, but for now, let's talk Spy, starting with the Disguise Kit. Spy can now sprint while disguised by holding jump. This means that even if he's disguised as a slower class, like Soldier or Heavy, he can move at normal Spy speed whenever he likes. This should vastly improve the versatility of the Disguise Kit and buff the Your Eternal Reward, since stabbing a Heavy doesn't necessarily slow you down anymore. Alright, now for weapons. First, the Enforcer, which was by far the worst part of my last video, I can admit that. I honestly thought I was buffing this thing by giving it a one-shot bleed ability to counter snipers, but I accidentally just nerfed the hell out of it instead. You guys made that very clear in the comments, so I'll just go on the record and say, oops. We're changing it completely into a close quarters fan the hammer style weapon to allow Spy to better defend himself in close range while weakening him at mid-range. Basically, it's the normal revolver, except now it fires twice as fast at the cost of less accuracy over time and a slower reload speed. Now this might seem pretty strong, and it is, but remember that if a Spy sneaks up to you at close range, there is another weapon he could use that would typically be more effective than his revolver. I'll let you think for a second and try and guess what that weapon is. Now, since Spy can't backstab sentries, this gun will be especially effective in taking down buildings, which was one of the primary uses of the old Enforcer. And for all you math whizzes out there, these stats come together to form a 23% increase in damage per second over the normal revolver. However, this can be further capitalized on with correct cloak usage, since Spy can technically reload while cloaked as long as he begins reloading before he cloaks. Buffed. This pop-in, pop-out style of gameplay will combo nicely with our next Spy weapon, Your Eternal Reward. Now, as my friend Hintshot knows all too well, this weapon is very fun when it works, but sadly most of the time it just doesn't work. However, we have the power to change that. Since it's the stealthiest knife with its silent backstab and instant disguises, I figured it would make sense to push further in this direction by increasing its cloak and decloak speed, making it the only knife to have a passive buff. It will still maintain that increased cloak drain rate though, and disguising still consumes your entire cloak, so it's not just a flat out better cloak necessarily. It'll make for different kinds of stealth situations where you have to choose between having that fast cloak or having a disguise. You still take the disguise of your victims, of course, when you stab them, so if you pull it off right, you can get both at the same time. Buffed. And now for the moment of truth, the Ambassador. It has been reverted to its pre-Jungle Inferno state, meaning that headshots from any range do a clean 102 damage. In combination with the Kunai's health regeneration, this used to create juggernaut spies who could stomp entire teams. But if you saw my last video, you know that our Kunai no longer heals the Spy and instead offers him a longer range backstab. Without the possibility of juggernaut spies, I think this new old Ambassador could help Spy fulfill a more dynamic role in the team rather than exclusively just going for backstabs. It will also be the perfect counter to the new Darwin's Danger Shield, aka Forrester's Frogskin, which allows the sniper to jump to crazy positions at the cost of 25 health. In the last video, most people assumed this would make Sniper crazy overpowered, but in practice, it's really just not that crazy. And now with this Ambassador capable of insta-killing the sniper from any range due to his decreased health, it won't allow him to camp in these new positions for very long if there is an attentive enemy Spy. The Ambassador has been buffed. And now I'm gonna say something that might get me in a little bit of trouble. The Red Tape Recorder is, without a doubt, one of the weapons in Team Fortress 2. And if you didn't know that, I am so sorry you had to hear it from me. The old version of this weapon would send the engineer's buildings back in time, leveling them down while active. And as awesome as this sounds, using the normal sapper will just destroy the building much quicker than the Red Tape Recorder can, meaning the normal sapper is always the better option. Or is it? Yes, the Red Tape Recorder does less damage, but in certain cases, this can be a good thing. And by in certain cases, I mean in one hyper-specific case, which is when the Spy is fighting a battle engineer. The normal sapper takes 4 seconds to destroy a mini-sentry, whereas the Red Tape Recorder takes 10.5. Since most battle engineers don't play around their sentries the way a normal engineer might, they would usually prefer to just let the mini sentry die to the sapper so they can quickly place another one and maybe get a couple revenge crits. But since an engineer can't destroy a building while it's being sapped, the red tape recorder either forces the engineer to not have a sentry for 10 seconds or to go remove the sapper himself. This is the red tape recorder's one and only fucking use. But what if we changed it to lean into this aspect of the weapon? What if, instead of sending a building back in time, it froze the building in time? Meet the new red tape recorder, which does a sum total of 0 damage to buildings. It will stay on a building forever, disabling it until the engineer destroys the sapper. Combined with this 0 damage penalty, our new red tape recorder also has double health, meaning it takes 4 swings for a wrench to destroy the sapper. That is 6 swings for the jag and 2 for the homewrecker. This item will create a lot of different scenarios we haven't seen before in TF2. Usually it's pretty much useless for a spy to do a drive-by sap where he doesn't actually kill the engineer, but with this new red tape recorder, a spy can coordinate with his team to disable a sentry during a push to get the sentry destroyed by a heavy instead of having to do it all himself. You could also use this to sap a teleporter entrance after the blue team's forward spawn has been set, forcing the blue engineer to backtrack and retrieve his teleporter since he can't destroy it with his PDA. I know it's a little devious, but you know, Spy's kind of a devious guy. The spy could also use this item to trap engineers, waiting for them to return to their disabled building before gunning them down or stabbing them. It's also worth noting that the new enforcer can help you take out those buildings if you really need to. Buffed. And before we get to everybody's favorite spy weapons, the Diamondback and Kunai, I want to address the Wrangler. Many of you wanted to see this thing get nerfed in the last video, and I am so sorry you had to wait until now to see it happen. The old Wrangler was crazy strong because it gave the engineer's sentry a shield that absorbed 66% of incoming damage, essentially tripling its health pool. The wrangled sentry would also fire faster, making it a total menace to fight against. And while most of you suggested removing the shield, I really don't think that's the way to go with this item. What I appreciate about the Wrangler is that it shifts power away from the engineer and towards his sentry. Since the Engie can't use his shotgun while wrangling, he is theoretically weaker. However, this downside usually doesn't come into play because the Wrangler is generally used in ranged situations where the shotgun is already mostly useless. To balance this weapon, I've decided to further decrease the engineer's survivability rather than to decrease the sentry's survivability. This will come in the form of a 30% damage vulnerability for the engineer while the Wrangler is deployed. This will give him a functional 96 health instead of the usual 125, which should make him a little more fearful in certain situations. I've also reduced the damage the engineer takes from sentry jumping by 80%, opening up the more interesting side of this weapon, which is ninjaneering. Nerfed. And while I'm talking about non-spy weapons, I should mention some fixes I made since the last video. The Natasha still gives a speed boost while deployed, but also drains your health since it proved to be insanely strong. Nerfed. The Cozy Camper now only doubles your primary ammo instead of bringing it to 40. Nerfed. The Eureka effect and Machina have been changed back into their normal selves with no modding. I would like to change these things into something more interesting eventually, but for now, reverted. Also, I buffed the rocket jumper to have more ammo and a faster fire rate just because I'm morbidly curious to see how effective a Trollger can be when the normal limits of rocket jumping have been removed. Buffed. Alright, back to Spy, let's talk Diamondback. In my last video, I changed it into the Diamond back-to-back, making it a normal revolver with 2 shots and the benefit of getting 1 second of crits on a successful kill. I loved the idea for this weapon at the time, and I still love the idea for it, but you guys pointed out that it is incredibly weak. I buffed it by giving it the normal 6 shots with a slower firing speed and damage penalty. Every shot is 100% accurate though, so it allows a highly skilled spy to go on a killing spree if he's able to get that initial kill and stay safe afterwards. As with all of the weapons, this is not a finalized version. I expect it to need thorough playtesting and will more than likely be tweaked by the next video. Buffed. And last but not least, the Conniver's Kunai. In the last video, I removed the health mechanic in favor of extra range, you know, like a throwing knife. And I'll be honest, in practice, it has been extremely fun, both to play with and against. It doesn't feel overpowered, it doesn't feel underpowered, it just feels very different. You get stabs you normally wouldn't be able to get and die in situations you would normally survive in. It's not obvious if this is a better or worse option than stock in many situations, but it does change things up for a really fun spy experience where any second could grant you a multi-kill or get you insta-killed. It's fun. And that's my only goal with this entire project. I'm not saying that all of these changes should be put in the base game or that they should be competitively viable. My server isn't a competitive server, it's 12v12 with random crits enabled. Most of these would be very out of place in base TF2, and that's kind of the point. I want to see TF2 played in ways it hasn't been played in before. And if that means completely changing the identity of certain items, I'm honestly happy to do that. I want to see what it would be like to have snipers jump 50 feet in the air, or to give Demoman a beggar's bazooka, or have spies who can backstab from a longer range. I want to see if we can do these wild things while keeping the game balanced. But it's not going to be the same game you're used to. My longtime viewers know that I am a silly guy who likes to make silly changes to this game. I made a version of Harvest where the center building spins at Mach 5 speed and kills you if you get hit by it. I made a version of Badwater where the cart goes the wrong direction and covers completely different parts of the map. I made an app that scrambles your keybinds, making the game nearly impossible to play. This is what I do, and I love doing it. If my last video was the first of mine you've ever seen, I can see why it might have rubbed you the wrong way. Perhaps I should have titled the last video, Experimenting on TF2's Terrible Weapons, or something like that, so sorry if you got clickbaited, seriously. I have a single player game on Steam called Thunder Jumper, but once I finish that, I'm going to be making multiplayer games. So I wanted to experiment with multiplayer balance in my favorite video game of all time, Team Fortress 2. I've already built prototypes for games where you shoot your enemies to send them back in time, or where you re-roll the stats of your gun every time you get a kill. So this isn't even the wildest thing I've done in terms of game design. So here's my warning to you. If this all sounds terrible, get out now, because in the next video I'm going to be giving the fortified compound explosive arrows, or making the Sandman turn Scout into a demigod, or something like that, so beware. Huge thanks to my patrons for making this all possible. We got a couple of new guys since the last video, so I hope you're all enjoying the game. If you want to try these changes out and contribute to the balance discussion, go to grouchland.net and hit connect. Alright, that's it from me. See you on the server.